So I've watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I kind of know what I like to see, and hopefully this will be, halfway interesting. But it's, I'm handheld and using a cell phone, so it's probably not going to be that great. But anyway, here we go. This was my dad's old guitar. Kind of grew up with it. It's been around the house ever since I can remember, and I learned to play on it a little bit. It's never been a really good player. It's not in terrible shape for what it is. I think it's a something between 1960 and 65 True Tone, exclusively available at your Western Auto. So kind of a lower mid quality guitar, even when it was new. But we don't care about that. We're going to try and make a good player out of it, and shine it up as best we can. And not going to be doing any refinishing or anything significant. Maybe a little touch up and some polish, and just leave it be what it is. But anyway, the initial problem, the terrible string height, the neck angle, of course, was the issue. It had this bridge on it. I think I put this on several years ago, trying to patch it up at one point, but it was all the way bottomed out, as you can see, and the action was still much too high. Here's my frog, who watches me while I work and passes judgment on everything I do. I believe this is the original tailpiece. It needs a good polish, but I think it'll clean up. I think that came on the guitar. This was an electric model with a pickup and a volume and tone control. None of that's here, so maybe I can find something not terribly expensive that reasonably will work to make it complete. And also, from the pictures I've seen, I believe this model had a white pick guard. Not a whole lot else to say about it. It does have binding front and back. I think this finish is just painted on. I don't think that's real quilted wood, and it's probably a laminate. It's probably not a solid wood. I hadn't tried to look on the outside and match up the grain on the inside and stuff like they show online, but it doesn't really matter a whole lot, and I suspect it's probably a laminate. No binding on the fretboard. Pretty good bit of wear. It did get played quite a bit at some point in his life, and it does have a truss rod. No truss rod cover. That nut's been replaced, of course. It doesn't have the right. It's pretty much square. So we'll have to address that. I think I might try my hand at making a deer antler nut. I got a lot of friends that like to hunt, and I believe I can get a hold of a deer antler, and I think I'm going to try that. And I may even modify the saddle of that bridge a little bit and try to get some antler in there and see if we can't get some better tone out of this. This old arch top. I think it's something in my mind that would have been used by a, the big band era, or something, or I think it's gonna have a kind of a hush mellow tone. It's not really gonna bark like a lot of acoustics would. But even so, we want it to work right. And memory of Glenn Allen Pemberton. Like I said, I believe this is something between 60 and 65 when it was new. 1960 and 1965. Frets, We got a little bit of sharpness on the edges here. You know, the frets are peeking out just a little bit. The fingerboard really is pretty nice. It's not. I kind of cleaned it up already a little bit, but it's in pretty good shape with some fingernail wear at the cowboy chords down here. Anyway, that's what we're working with. I got the big screw. This big honking wood screw was in the neck in this position, and I think that was a dad modification there. Got a nice big countersunk hole to hide it in, and even after removing the screw and you know, wiggling the neck around a pretty good bit, it was loose and in just about every direction, and it just would not come out. And I finally wrapped it pretty good with the palm of my hand here on the heel, and it came loose, but it came out in 2 pieces. So I don't know if that was broken previously or if I broke it getting it apart, but either way, I did manage to get that glued back up. It matched up pretty nicely. It had a little kind of dovetail effect to it, the way it cracked long ways with the grain here, and when I pushed it back together, it kind of held itself together. And then of course I put a couple clamps on it this way and tried to put just a little English on it here because this dovetail is so poorly shaped. I mean, that's just crazy. But I think I'm going to try and shim that up and make that right. I'm going to attempt to get a little bit of the angle back on the dovetail itself. As you can see, it's not really cut in there. It's almost straight out, whereas the guitar, you know, has a pretty good bit of angle to it. And I like to fit that as well as possible. I've cleaned this up. I got all the glue, and it was glued right over the surface finish, except for with the exception this was all scratched up with some sort of tool. And but the finish was still there. They just scraped it up trying to get the glue to get a bite, I guess. And I took this little tool here and cleaned all this up and cleaned up in here, and I left the shims mostly at this point just for measurement. Those will probably end up coming out, and I anticipate gluing and clamping my shims to this after I straighten that up a little bit, do a little carding on that and clean that up. I want to get good wood contact in here, and I intend to leave the big screw out and put a dowel in this hole here and put it back together without the screw. The real root of the problem on all this, though, unfortunately, sorry I'm so close here. Unfortunately, you might can see that there's a crack here in the body, and it was like that when I took it apart. As far as the top layer of wood missing here at these points, I did not see it on the neck joint. I cleaned that up, but it was just glue. Of course, that's kind of like level 1 cleaning. That needs some more attention to make it right before we glue that together. But unfortunately, let's see if I can do this where you can see it. The side of the guitar, I thought, had just come loose from the from the neck block, which really wouldn't be that big a deal. But if you look, sorry about the terrible camera work, but if you look down in there, the neck block is cracked. And I'm just not experienced enough at this work to take the back off of this thing. You can see that crack. It actually comes all the way up to somewhere in this area. After watching a lot of videos, I'm using tight bond glue, and I think what I'm going to do is open this crack up, and between, you know, a small paintbrush and some a syringe, try to get some glue down in here. I'm going to get a better look at it from inside, I hope. You know, with the F-holes, that really doesn't give you much room to work. I wish, you know, if it had a hole, a sound hole here, I have better access, of course. But hopefully, between syringes and paintbrushes, and maybe even with a little blast of air through that crack while I'm holding it open, I can get glue all the way into that neck block and all the way up to the top of that crack. And I haven't mocked up my clamp yet, but I think what I'm going to do is use one of these clamps to get the guitar clamped this way, and then put a shim under here to apply pressure to that. Hopefully I can get enough on there to get that back in place. It is raised a little bit when it's relaxed, so I'll try and get in there and make sure there's nothing underneath of that. If there is, I would imagine it'd just be here at the edge and not deep down inside of there where that crack is. But anyway, I'm going to try to glue that up rather than take the back off of this guitar and mess with the binding, and actually replace that neck block, which is really what a experienced person would probably do on a valuable guitar. But that's the plan.